Hi guys, welcome back to the Spurred on podcast, and it's Timo Werner announcement day. So who better to bring in than our German football expert and Chelsea fan? So the perfect person to talk to us about this, I think, still a kind of shock surprise signing. It's Matt Beadle. How are you, Matt?
I'm very well. Thank you very much. That beautiful introduction. And I am both of those things. I live in Germany and I am a Chelsea fan. I apologize for both.
No, it's all good. And a kind of high-level football coach in Germany as well. So really great insights coming your way. I'm going to start by just giving a few stats about Timo Werner for any of the audience listening who haven't kind of dug a bit deeper into it. So his Bundesliga record, 102 goals in 257 appearances, 46 assists as well. His Chelsea record doesn't look great on initial kind of looking, 10 goals in 56 appearances, but also 13 assists, so 23 goal involvements total, and then 24 goals in 57 appearances for the German national team. Can I start, Matt, by asking you, in terms of German football fans in general, what is the overall feeling of Timo Werner as a player at kind of 27 years old? You know, I think he was a raw talent that everyone thought was incredibly exciting. Is that still the case? Has he kind of pushed forward his talent in the potential into kind of actual play? Do people think he's made the most of his ability, or are people still wondering about him?
I think, sadly, the answer is no. The general feeling and sort of feedback here in Germany is that it was a missed opportunity, that there was something really very special there. At the beginning, you know, he scored an absolute hatful of goals in the under 17s and under 19s Bundesliga. He then went straight into, playing for Leipzig. And as you said, scored a hatful of goals there as well. And is in totally still the top goal scorer for Leipzig ever in their history. So, I mean, we're talking about an undeniably statistically successful goal scorer, but something's gone wrong. Now, I'm sure as Spurs fans, you're quite happy to point the finger and say Chelsea ruined him, like they've ruined a lot of other number nines. The Robert Fleck effect, or the Andrei Shevchenko effect, or a host of other number. What?
Chris Sutton?
The Chris Sutton, exactly. There's an absolute host of number nines that Chelsea have apparently destroyed. In fact, I had a really interesting conversation this morning with my coaching colleagues out here in Germany. Shout out to all of my coach colleagues at SFL. And they follow German football closer than I do as Germans, and they were struggling to put their finger on it. It is an odd one because he was so good and so effective and so exciting, and something's gone wrong. And the closest we can get to sort of summarizing it is some kind of mental issue. It seems to be some kind of self-confidence issue, which I guess grew during his time at Chelsea. To come back here to Leipzig, you'd think, you know, the returning hero, but similar to the way that Torres, when he went back to Spain, it also didn't happen for him there either. You know, similar story. It's kind of the Michael Owen story, kind of the Torres story, explosive and exciting at the first part of his career, and for whatever reason, hasn't been able to recreate that.
Yeah, and certainly last week when it kind of first broke that he might be joining Spurs, I initially was first asking myself, so why is he not playing at Leipzig again? I've looked into it. So they bought this kid in Opienda who scored 11 in 16.
I was going to say,
and you know, in terms of being I guess a number 9 or whatever, you could say, okay, so why hasn't he then moved out to the left flank, which is actually where I think he'll play more for Spurs. So I was wondering, kind of in terms of your memories of him at Chelsea, how much did he tend to play as a 9, or how much did he play out wide, and where do you think his best position is?
Okay, there's a couple of questions in there. We'll start with the first one. Why is it not happening at Leipzig? Yeah, I find it difficult to know. Obviously, I don't see him training every day, but yeah, Opienda's come in and has been an absolute revelation. The way that the Leipzig team of the late teens used to play was, you know, winning the ball in midfield, hitting teams on the break, really exciting, dynamic football. They play a little bit more possession-based these days, which Chelsea also played, and I think that generally doesn't suit his style of play. But yeah, he's come in and has been incredible. Then to answer your second question, what do I think his best position is? I think the best game he ever played for Chelsea was definitely the Champions League final. And I think you mentioned his assists before, and I think that's a really fair thing to do, because he's not, okay, he scored a lot of goals, but he's not just a goal scorer. His movement off the ball is often criticised because he doesn't have the most elegant gait. You know, maybe he's a bit sort of clumsy, or he looks a bit clumsy sometimes. Quick players often do, right?
Yeah.
But I think his best position is playing off the left, and that's where he played for Chelsea in that final, and everyone remembers the pass from Mount. Everyone remembers the going around the goalkeeper, Havertz going around the goalkeeper and the scoring. What I think a lot of people miss or don't necessarily think about is the way that he dragged the right back totally out of the game with fantastic movement. He's not an unintelligent centre forward or forward. So I can see him playing off the left for Tottenham as well. I think that creates space in behind. You've got runners from midfield. You've got Son, who always wants to get in behind. I think he could create some havoc and create some space for your other players.
Yeah, and in the short term, obviously Son is away for the Asian Cup, so I think there is a natural gap on that left side where Son has been playing, because Richarlison, in the last 6 games or so, has been playing as the number 9 and has actually started scoring.
Yeah, exactly. And another question mark, another player with obvious talent, and it's gone through periods where you think, why is this not happening, right?
Yeah. One thing I wanted to talk about is what Spurs under Big Ange are, and doesn't get talked about as much as the fact that he wants us to be kind of in charge of the game, take the game by the scruff of the neck. But when we lose the ball, it's kind of elite pressing and hard pressing. And that to me seems like something that Werner really is great at. Is that a fair assumption?
I want to be very careful talking about Ange Postecoglou's tactics, because I was vilified last time by some of your listeners for having the audacity to critique. I wasn't even criticizing. I was just critiquing his philosophy. I'm a massive fan, and I'm a massive fan of pressing football and the kind of ball domination football that he wants to play. Yeah, he's great. He'll run all day long, and his numbers are huge. I mean, he runs consistently when he plays 90 minutes. He runs 13, 14 kilometers in the game. High sprint ratios as well. He's not a lazy forward, so he fits into that pressing style, and he'll have no problem with that whatsoever. So I think Tottenham fans should ask themselves, what are they hoping to get out of him? Are they hoping to get the 40 goals a season pre-Chelsea Werner? I don't think they are. But if they're hoping to get a 27-year-old intelligent Champions League winner who knows how to press, knows how to win the ball back, and knows how to create space for other talent, you're going to get him. And I think you might find that his statistics on first view might not be great per se, but I think others might benefit. That would be my boast. And I think there's an argument that he's done some of that this year at Leipzig. He's come off the bench a lot. He started a few games. It's not like he hasn't been involved at all, but others are scoring goals around him. And I don't think that's a bad sign.
Yeah. So in terms of you as a football coach, then we mentioned earlier that we feel like it maybe is, let's call it a confidence issue. Where do you go with a player who you think, you see has all the talent, but maybe just doesn't have the self-belief? And I'm not suggesting you would know what to do with the 27-year-old Champions League winner necessarily yet. But I think it is relevant to kind of know how to go about that, because I think Ange Postecoglou is known, or at least seems from the outside, as more of a kind of arm around the shoulder manager. And Spurs have come from the last 5 years of, Conte and Mourinho, who are stick rather than carrot. Am I naive to think maybe Big Ange can just put his arm around Timo, tell him he's got a point to prove in the Premier League because people think he's not a great finisher, and really get on that pitch and maybe score us 7-8 league goals towards the end of the season that could push us somewhere we didn't expect to go?
No, again, I don't know him personally, sadly, but I know a lot. I've worked with a lot of ex-pro centre forwards. I've worked with a lot of current professional centre forwards or youth players who didn't quite make it but play high-level semi-pro football or whatever. And the vast majority of centre forwards that I've worked with like encouragement, prefer the carrot as opposed to the stick, as you say. I'm generalising, of course. There are others that I'm sure are quite happy to be led otherwise. But the centre forwards, the goal scorers that I've known over the years, like to be encouraged, like to have an environment where they feel comfortable, where they feel respected, where they feel that they don't have to look over their shoulder every time they see the fourth official holding the board up. That they've got confidence that they're going to play large portions of games. And I think he'll benefit from that. I'm not really sure it makes sense to bring a player who's scored 25 goals or whatever for the one of the strongest national sides in Europe, and have him sit on the bench. I'm not really sure what that gives Tottenham. You can bring young players through and have them experiencing those kind of things. I think if you're going to bring a 27-year-old Champions League winner in, I think you've got to give him minutes. I think you've got to put your arm around him, as you say, and I think you've got to motivate him and encourage him and congratulate him, not only on the pure statistics, but on the other things. And Ange is 1,000 times a better tactician than I am, but he will recognize, and that he and his coaching staff will have recognized the Moneyball statistics that he gives you, that movement off the ball, dragging players out of position, making runs in behind, deliberately running offside to confuse back fours, all those kinds of things. He gives you that. And then when you've got intelligent players like Richarlison and Son and others around you, I think that's what he'll give you more than just goals, goals, goals.
Yeah, you've mentioned his intelligence. I wonder, well, from your memory of him at Chelsea and what you hear of German football fans, my taking on him from what I've read and seen is that he's not the kind of player to ever kick up a fuss. And Ange Postecoglou's talked a lot about he will take a player who is maybe not as talented, but is a good egg in the dressing room and isn't going to cause any trouble. Am I right to think that Werner is, a real trier and will always, be good morale-wise?
Oh God, yeah. There were so many social media films, clips coming out during his Chelsea time of the Chelsea players making fun of him, right? So playing practical jokes on him. There was one where a couple of players had this huge setup. They got a whole camera team in and a green screen and everything, and had him going around on a little kid's car and stuff, right, pretending to advertise his product
and stuff, right? Yeah,
all sorts of stuff. And they took the mickey out of him, and he just took it, and it was hilarious, and everyone was laughing. They weren't laughing at him; they were kind of laughing with him. He seems to be, and from what I picked up from a couple of colleagues I've got at Chelsea and stuff, apparently an incredibly nice guy, right? He has a reputation in Germany as not being that eloquent in front of the camera, but he says it as he sees it. He doesn't have that standard, coached media football retort. He kind of just shoots from the hip, but sometimes it comes across as a little bit unthought out. I'm a big fan of that because I think it's genuine. But as a colleague of mine mentioned this morning, he dived and won a penalty a couple of months ago now. And in the interview afterwards was asked, "Did you dive?" And he went, "Yeah, I kind of did," and sort of laughed at it. And half of the internet thought that was hilarious, and half of the internet thought he was a dick. Why aren't you more professional about that? So he strikes me, from what I know, and I repeat, I don't know him personally, that he's kind of a decent fella.
Yeah.
And also everything that I'm hearing from the Tottenham camp is that it's a really bubbly place. So I think he might fit into that culture.
Yeah, and maybe there's an element of, and this I've seen this kind of at top level professional players or with top level professional players down the years. You can almost sometimes be a bit too nice. Like maybe those guys at the very elite level are just like a bit more kind of fuck you. Do you know what I mean? And
nice guys finish last, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. But hope maybe Ange can instill a little bit more of the devil in him.
Say that to Gary Lineker, say that to Franz Beckenbauer, who died yesterday, for example. There have been some greats who have been absolute gentlemen. So I'm not sure. The jury's out for me.
It's true, but I mean, Harry Kane, I would say, is a gentleman, but also when he gets on the pitch, he does what it takes. And he really learned, I really noticed early with Harry Kane that he learned that thing about if you get a touch, you just go down. And I'm not saying that Werner doesn't do that, but I'm giving that as an example of how professionalism with these absolute killers at the top level means they will go the extra yard and do what it takes. I didn't mention Werner's Champions League record early. He scored 17 in 43 with 7 assists, so 24 goal involvements. And obviously I did mention his international record, which is good. It kind of shows that at the top, at the top level, the elite level, he's got good numbers. He has got good records. So I feel confident based on a lot of what you said and what we've read that if Ange can make him believe in himself and give him minutes, because presumably if he's been on the bench a lot, he'll probably be quite off the rhythm at the moment. It might take a little bit of time. But yeah, I don't know. For some reason, and this might be my kind of glass half full Tottenham fan, Tottenham supporting life. But for some reason, it feels like a kind of clever loan deal, like a no-lose gamble. What's the kind of what are people saying in Germany about it? Are they glad that he's going to get minutes potentially with the Euros coming up? Is there any sense of that?
The headline in the biggest German newspaper this morning on the back page was, "I'm going because I want to play in the Euros," right? That's apparently what Werner said. So good on him for giving that a try, for not being a 27-year-old, like Oscar, just, jets off to wherever, to Saudi Arabia or China for a big buck or whatever, which I'm sure he could do. Famously, people don't earn that much at Tottenham. Obviously, it's great money, but in comparison to the PSGs and the Inter Miamis of this world, he could definitely make more money elsewhere. So he's come to play football. He knows the league. I know it's an old truism that pundits say all the time, but he does know the league. He knows the pace of the league. Yes, he'll need to get his match fitness up because he hasn't been playing as many minutes. But I've got to say, with my Chelsea hat on, this pains me to say, I think he might be a success. I really do. for the reasons that I mentioned. I think he fits into the culture. I think he fits into the tactics of midfield and offensive press. He's dangerous in behind, which is how you like to play with balls in behind. He's absolutely selfless. And if I may come back to the gentleman point, he's a gentleman in front of the camera. And he's a lovely guy, maybe too lovely, as you said. But he's not on the pitch. He's happy to go down and win his team a penalty. He's not stupid as far as that's concerned. He strikes me as naive in front of the camera, but he's not naive on the football pitch.
Great. And then the deal that apparently has been done for a potential sale in the summer would be a 17 million euro option rather than an obligation, which to me in the current climate just seems like, imagine he scores 6-7 league goals for us and really fits in. 17 million euros for that experience is madness.
That is an absolute bargain. That is an absolute bargain. It's not like he's a 27-year-old who's had an ACL or anything. I mean, he's still fit, okay? And he's not 32, and it's not like his legs have gone or any of those other classics that we hear. If you can put your arm around him and you can get him hitting the back of the net in training and a couple go flying off his backside and whatever, and like I say, Tottenham dominate the ball, he's going to get chances. Yes, he got a chance in Chelsea, but to be fair, and that's another thing we haven't mentioned today, and I think it's not the most uninteresting point. He, in his time during Chelsea, had ridiculous statistics for being the player who hit the post the most in the Premier League. At the time when he was there, he was the player that had the most shots saved by goalkeepers. Now, I'm not saying it's only bad luck, but I think a couple more could have flown in for him at Chelsea, and people would have remembered him differently.
And his start at Chelsea was during the COVID time, so no kind of crowd. So that must have been a bit weird. And then what managers did he play under? I say managers because I assume you had probably 7 or 8 during his 18-month spell there. Not that Spurs can talk. I don't know where that came from. Just feeling confident because for once
you set this podcast up just to get that line in today, didn't you? Yeah.
But no, he played under Tuchel. Who did he play under?
Well, he won the Champions League under Tuchel.
Yeah.
And in fact, I saw a GIF this week. It was a photo of Havertz, Werner, and Mount standing wearing Chelsea kit, presumably in training at Cobham, and the caption said something like, "Tuchel won the Champions League with this 3 up front. That's genius." Right. All 3 of them come in for a lot of criticism, but all 3 of them are tested, proven international Champions League winners. Say what you want. I don't know what his connection is going to be like to Postecoglou. I don't know whether he prefers an arm around the shoulder or a kick up the backside. I don't know. What I do know is that Tuchel apparently is a brilliant man manager. He's not a nice guy man manager, but he has time for his players. And that worked. He won them Champions League. I mean, what was his job? Was his job to come in and score X goals, or was his job to come in and win the Champions League for Chelsea? I consider that job done, right?
Yeah, totally. Okay, and then like I said, I'm excited about it. I'm intrigued as well to see where it goes. And I just think it's no lose gamble. But I've got you, and just because we did mention him and we've just mentioned Tuchel, obviously we know about the numbers of how Harry Kane has done at Munich since he started. From the outside, someone living in Germany and being across all the media and everything, do you think they have a genuine chance of winning the Champions League this season, Bayern Munich?
Yes.
And if they did, how quickly do you think Harry Kane would try and get back to England?
Shall I get him your phone number? Would you like to text him?
I'd love that, yeah.
He seems like he's enjoying himself, mate. I mean, in the press conferences and in interviews and stuff, he's still doing everything in English, which I always think is a little bit sad. I like it when English players go over and really fumble around with their foreign language. I think it's cute. Yeah, he hasn't spoken much German yet, but he seems to be loving it.
I don't disagree. Sorry, that he's loving it. But what I think is just, for some reason, I do think he's desperate to get that Premier League goal scoring record. And so I'm not even saying, do you think he'll come back?
How many does he need?
Oh, it's like 50.
Oh wow! So it's max 2 seasons, right?
2.5 seasons. So I'm not even saying he would definitely come back to Spurs. I'm not sure how we would get the money together, but I could see him coming back to England as soon as he could. But only if they won the Champions League. I don't think the Bundesliga. No offense to the Bundesliga, I don't think that would be enough for him. I think he would think, oh, pundits will say that's that's an easy league to win. Never struck me as a player who cares what pundits say, which I respect. I think he I think he went to Bayern Munich because he cares what everybody says, because this whole him not winning a trophy thing is everything to him.
No, yeah, see, it's the same point, but I see it from a slightly different perspective. I think, with the greatest respect to Tottenham fans, I'm probably going to be attacked on social media for saying this, but I think he went to win titles. And yes, they are pretty much semi-guaranteed at Bayern. But I think he wants to do that. You know, he's not playing football for the money anymore. He's not playing football for the fame. His pictures on the front of the FIFA cover and what, you know, he's as famous as a footballer can ever be, and as successful as one can ever be. I think he wants to win a couple of trophies, and I think if he's there for 3 years, he might win 6, 7, 8 trophies. I don't knock him.
And also, if he's there for 3 years, he could still come back and score enough goals to knock Shearer off his
How old
perch.
would he be then?
He would be 30. Well, he's 30, so he'd be 33. He'd be coming to the end. But the good thing about Harry is that he plays mostly as a 10 these days anyway, or at least he certainly did in the last few years at Spurs, and still notched 20-odd goals a season. So we'll see. Similar
to Rooney in that sense. All right, so in 3 years, the Tottenham front line is going to be a 30-year-old Werner, a 33-year-old Kane, and a 31-year-old Son. Or how old's he?
No, Son's older than Kane. Son's already 31.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah,
there you go. A combined age of 100 for the front line for Tottenham in 2020.
I'm just talking hypotheticals. Anyway, look, thank you so much for talking to us about Timo Werner. I really appreciate it. Matt, let the audience know where they can find you and what you're up to.
Cheers, mate. You can find me on all socials at Matt L. Beadle. My website is mattbeadle.com. So looking forward to the next time, Barney.
Legendary. And guys, just before we go, thank you so much for all your support. Once again, if you're listening on the podcast, please do come across to YouTube. It's at Barnaby Slater _ on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, go to the podcast, the Spurred On podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And in the description boxes of both, you'll see that you can become a Patreon member or a member on YouTube, just £1 a month, and we're going to build a community, and you'll get some special perks, including live membership only Q&As and the like. But most importantly, with a big signing, at least one big signing coming in today or tomorrow, come on, you Spurs.